Amen. Hi y'all. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to a new video. Jesus is King by Kanye West. I can't believe I'm talking about it, but I am. Let's talk about it. Actually, before we get too deep into what this album is, we have to talk about the tumultuous lead up to the release of Jesus is King, dating back all the way to 2018, as that was a very polarizing year for Kanye West, a very tumultuous year for Kanye West, as he went through a series of, I would say, MAGA phases. He started wearing the MAGA hat, he went to the White House, had a talk with Donald Trump, the President of the United States at this time, and during the midst of all of that, basically a lot of chaos kind of ensured from his fan base, saying like, this is crazy ridiculous, Kanye, what are you doing, what the hell? Also fans being like, it's just his opinion, man, just let him live. And while I'm not gonna really state my opinion on politics, because I'm not that kind of person, this certainly was ridiculous, I will say. Not the fact that he supported Trump, the fact that he's gone political. And look, I'm not one to say artists can't go political at all. That's fine on them. But I mean, this just came out of the blue. The slavery comments, how slavery was a choice, and somewhat ignorance on a lot of the topics he was talking about. This all kind of led up to his release in June of 2018 titled Ye during the Wyoming sessions, where he released multiple albums from different artists, basically the producer of like 5 albums during the releases of May and June. Pusha T's Daytona, which was followed by Kanye West's Ye, and then the collaborative effort between West and Kid Cudi titled Kids See Ghost, Nas's 12th album Nazir, and Tiana Taylor's second studio album KTSE. And while I found Ye to be a hodgepodge of lost potential, I found that album to be very lyrically dense, as a lot of the lyrics on that album deal heavily in the depressive side of his bipolar depression or bipolar disorder that he has constantly talked about. And I'm very much an advocate for people being pretty open about their mental disorders. I think it's important to bring awareness to mental health. But even after these 5 studio album releases, Kanye then said that Yandhi was going to drop in September of 2018. September rolls by, nothing happens. Then leaks start to pour out onto the internet. Songs featuring Dolla, Lil Pump was a single off of his album Harvard Dropout, which then led to more confusion, like, where's the album, Kanye? Where's the album? The Storm, Bye Bye Baby, Hurricane, Last Name, City in the Sky / Garden, and Chakras. And a few songs on Jesus is King kind of have the same flow as some of the leaks, especially the song Water, which sounds very similar to a song called Water, which was leaked, I guess. But after all of this tumultuous build-up to a very flaccid ending, nothing happened. Yandhi was never released, Yandhi never happened, and Yandhi existed, but Kanye never felt confident enough to release it. At least that's what I feel. And then Sunday Service was a group that he started in early 2019, and then videos started to pour out from people who attended the Sunday services. And I mean, they were pretty good videos. They had the very nice gospel vocals and the choir in the background, very angelic sounding. More leaks started to come out slowly but surely. We kind of felt that Yandhi didn't feel like it was a thing anymore. Where's Yandhi, Kanye? Where is Yandhi? The internet was going wild. At least his fan base was going mad. Where's Yandhi? Why can't we get Yandhi? Finish Yandhi, Kanye. Stop doing the Sunday service bull crap and finish Yandhi. And then the days roll by, and then all of a sudden we get a glimpse of something different. Kim Kardashian tweeted a picture of a track listing with the title Jesus is King that was set to release on September 27th, and this was published on August 29th. So then we were waiting until August 27th. August 27th rolls around and no album. So now we all look like clowns. And then more talk came from him as he was talking about being a born-again Christian and how this would affect the album greatly how Jesus is King is mainly a gospel album and a Christian hip-hop album. And that is certainly the case because this is the first Kanye West album to be completely clean. There is no explicitives on this album. He started to talk about what Jesus has done for him and what Christianity did for him, and people will start waiting for the damn album. And then another release date comes by. It was 2 weeks prior to the October 25th release date when people were very excited. The leaks started to pour out online about what some of the music sounded like on Jesus is King. So when this release date rolls by, nothing happens again. We're just kind of sitting there like, why do we keep believing Kanye? But after a slew of controversy because of fans being just like dying to hear what was on this album, he then took to Twitter and stated, Jesus is King, October 25th. In a tweet that was his first since January 1st of the same year, 2019. And people were finally excited. This seemed real. This seemed tangible. We are in arm's length. We are almost there. We can freaking taste it. And then October 25th rolls around, and at midnight Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, the album was a no-show. And then what happened? What happened, Kanye? We are a third-time fool. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I don't know what to do. Call me a damn clown. Because that's what the entire internet was saying. We're damn clowns, people. We're damn clowns. But then Kanye updated us, saying that he was fixing a few mixing problems that he saw fit were to be fixed. And, you know, it will be released. So I went to bed that night, woke up, and saw that Jesus is King dropped. It was finally here. The numerous failed releases and the tumultuous lead up to this album, this had to be a magnum opus. This had to be the best thing in the world. This is a perfect record, A+ out of A+, no questions asked. Yeah, there's definitely something I can talk about on this album, and that is the fact that this is a pure Christian hip-hop album. It's not the purest of one, but it's definitely a good attempt, in my opinion. As you get these gospel vocals and these choir samples from the Sunday service group and Sunday service choir on tracks like Every Hour, on the song Selah. Nearly a lot of songs on here use a choir as backing vocals or main vocals, like on the first track, Every Hour, the introduction track to this album, where you hear this choir, the Sunday service choir, just giving a very magnificent, very beautifully arranged and wonderfully put together set piece where they're basically singing lines about how important the Lord is and how important their everyday lives are in needing Him in their lives. This track is then followed up by the song Selah, which you could say is a teaser track to this album, as it was a very early published song that was put kind of like in the limelight when this album was released. Kind of a single, I guess. This track does feature him rapping, and it also has the line, "Everybody wanted Yandi, then Jesus Christ did the laundry." I think a lot of people are looking at this album kind of wondering, what is this? Is this an album to convince yourself that Jesus is King? Jesus is a holy savior? Jesus is someone you should worship? Or is this kind of like Kanye's love letter to Jesus? Because I definitely see both criticisms. I see why this seems sloppy. This seems rushed and unfinished. But the theme of this album is, in my opinion, salvation. And I look at this album as Kanye's response to what Jesus has done for him. This review sounds ridiculous because there are tracks where he is referencing there is another person of Jesus and Kanye. There are also tracks where he is referencing himself as Jesus. So it is easy to misconstrue the lyrics from one way to another, as it doesn't feel very thematic sometimes. Selah does feature great production, these thunderous drums, and these gospel vocals that feel so uplifting and anthemic. The track Follow God does talk about Kanye kind of going into the footsteps of a person who is very religious saying, I was screaming at my dad, he told me it ain't Christ-like. This is repeated a few times in the track, also reworded as driving with my dad and he told me it ain't Christ-like. Also arguing with my dad, he said it ain't Christ-like. Also saying, give him some advice, he started spazzing on me, I started spazzing back, he said this ain't Christ-like. And then at the end of the song, he basically just says, ah! As I'm kind of left wondering, is this kind of like a hypocritical critique on God, as this can be somewhat of a hypocritical song, in my opinion? As someone saying, they're do this one thing, but when the other person does it back, oh no, that's not right, you shouldn't do that. That's what I kind of get from this song. Kind of how sometimes it can be critical, and it can be annoying. And a lot of people have been saying that this is also a very similar theme that The Life of Pablo had back in 2016, where it was very religious, very spiritual. But it wasn't a complete Christian hip-hop album. The song Closed on Sunday isn't one of my favorites. I think the low, down-tempo beat of this song kind of ruins the flow of the entire album. While it does continue the Christianity side of this album, I don't feel like it considers the energy of this entire album into this song, as it's a little more downtrodden, as it's a little less verbose and not as punchy as some of the other songs on this album. You get the song On God, which features a very lengthy rap verse from Kanye himself. He talks about the comments that he said about the slavery in the 13th Amendment, which is the amendment that abolished slavery back in the 1800s. And while I do like this track, it is weird to have the Pierre producer tag, even though that I know that is a thing. I know he puts that in his songs that he produces. Also, the track Everything We Need is one of my favorites on this album, as they feature Dolla and Aunt Clemons vocals, kind of this angelic reverb on the intro. Dolla really does show his strength on this track in particular. And I like Kanye West's verse that he delivers, the first verse that he delivers. And then you have the track Waters, which features Aunt Clemons a little more than what the previous track did. I love the vocals on the chorus where it says, we are water, pure as water, like a newborn daughter. My apologies, I'm not the best singer, but you get what I'm saying. It's very nice, it's very angelic, it's very pretty, and I do like the flow that Kanye has on the second verse of this song, just basically repeating every line with Jesus, follow us through, Jesus heal the bruises, clean the music, please help us, please help, please heal. Goes on and on and on with this track. On the song God Is, you have Kanye West very intimately singing into this track, and his vocals are kind of raspy. It feels like something's in the back of his throat. They feel very personal to me. And then you have the track Hands On, which in my opinion has one of the weakest refrains on this entire album, as Fred Hammond's refrain is layered in a bunch of effects that ruin the authentic feel of this track. I feel like there's a phaser along with the vocoder on this refrain. It just kind of ruins the harmony of this song. The song also brings up the other 13th Amendment and 3 strikes. It also does talk more about Christianity, as most, if not all of these songs do. Say I'm finna do a gospel album. What have you been hearing from the Christians? They'll be the first one to judge me. They make me feel like nobody loved me. I feel that this line in particular is foreshadowing the pushback this album got from his most beloved fans and his most adored stans, as it feels like Kanye is going very left field and just making a weird gospel hip-hop album that doesn't really have any rhyme or reason to it. The song Use This Gospel is a standout track that features none other than Clipse. Yeah, their first song together since 2013, and they do deliver a pretty good verse. Pusha T delivers the first verse, and then you have No Malice delivering a punchier second verse. And then a sax solo from Kenny G, which is not bad. I like it. Then you get the lackadaisical outro track to this album, Jesus is Lord, as it is only a 50-second song that basically features a verse from Kanye that says, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is Lord, and that's repeated. There isn't anything interesting or anything meaningful to that track in particular, other than the fact that, hey, you just be a Christian. Just be a Christian for once. So overall, my thoughts on this album. While I think a lot of the production on this album seems very half-baked, very underproduced, because it does feel like a lot of work should have gone into this album, but yet it sounds like none of it did. And a lot of the vocals seem a little rough, a little cutting the corner. I still like the gospel songs on this album. The choir vocals are great, and a good amount of features on this album do impress. But the Kanye vocals don't really seem to stand out on this album, as Kanye does deliver some great vocals on other albums previously to Jesus is King, on albums like Ye, or The Life of Pablo, or even My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. There are great songs where his flow and his voice are very stand out. And I also find a lot of the bars on this album to be some of his weakest. I don't find a lot of the lyrics pertaining to Christianity or Jesus Christ to be anything other than what he feels like saying to Jesus if he was in the same room as him. As this sounds like an album that was a letter to another person, saying what you have done to me has caused me great pleasure in life, and I want you to understand that. It's not like he's trying to convince his audience to go Christian or go complete gospel and listen to just gospel and Christian hip-hop or just Christian music as a whole. This album to me just feels like what Jesus did to Kanye, and what Kanye is relaying to us, what Jesus did to him. I don't find that all that bad. However, I do say this is his weakest album to date, as it is very underproduced and somewhat underwritten. Also, a lot of the vocals from Kanye, not that well panned out. But I do like the choir. I do like a good amount of features on this album. I wish it was worked on more. I mean, it's kind of crazy for me to say that, even though this has been pushed back so many times, I still feel like it hasn't been worked on all that much. So after all that said and done, I'm giving Kanye West's Jesus is King a B-. But I mean, depending on the day, it could be a B-, it could be a B. I'm really conflicted with this score, because on some hand it's good and should be praised for what it is, but on some hand there are problems with it. So I'm pretty comfortable with giving this album a B-. Outro. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this album down below. Let me know what albums you want me to review next, and that is it. Leave a like, comment, share, do whatever you want. Let me know how I can improve future videos down below. And remember, this is only my opinion, because music is subjective. Damn, 34 minutes.